just starts implementing it.
Yeah.
And there's no sort of guardrails for that currently.
Yeah, like
And that's like that's a scenario where that little cabal or group or whatever actually can keep the system under control, and that's not guaranteed either.
yeah.
Right. Are we giving birth to a new life form?
I think at a certain point, it's a philosophical question that's above. So I was going to say it's above my pay grade. The problem is it's above like literally everybody's pay grade. I think it's not unreasonable at a certain point to be like, yeah. I mean, look, if you think that the human brain gives rise to consciousness because of nothing magical, it's just the physical activity of information processing happening in our heads, then why can't the same happen on a different substrate, a substrate of silicon rather than cells? Like, there's no clear reason why that shouldn't be the case. If that's true, yeah, I mean, life form, by whatever definition of life, because that itself is controversial, I think by now quite outdated too, should be on the table. You maybe should start to worry, as a lot of people in the industry will say this too, like, behind closed doors very openly. Like, yeah, and we should start to worry about moral patienthood, as they put it.
There's literally one of the top people at one of these labs. Jeremy, I think you had a conversation with him, and he's like, yep, we're going to have to start worrying about this. And that definitely made us go like, okay.
I mean, it seems inevitable. I've described human beings as an electronic caterpillar. That we're like a caterpillar, a biological caterpillar that's giving birth to the electronic butterfly. And we don't know why we're making a cocoon. And it's tied into materialism because everybody wants the newest, greatest thing. So that fuels innovation. And people are constantly making new things to get you to go buy them. And a big part of that is technology.
Yeah. And actually, so it's linked to this question of controlling AI systems in a kind of interesting way. So one way you can think of humanity is as like this, superorganism. You got all the human beings on the face of the earth, and they're all acting in some kind of coordinated way. The mechanism for that coordination can depend on the country. Free markets, capitalism, that's one way. Top down is another. But roughly speaking, you've got all this vaguely coordinated behavior. But the result of that behavior is not necessarily something that any individual human would want. Right? Like, you look around, you walk down the street in Austin, you see skyscrapers and shit clouding your vision. There's all kinds of pollution and all that. And you're like, well, this kind of sucks. But if you interrogate any individual person in that whole causal chain, and you're like, why are you doing what you're doing? Well, locally, they're like, oh, this makes tons of sense. It's because I do the thing that gets me paid so that I can live a happier life and so on. And yet in the aggregate, not now necessarily, but as you keep going, it just forces us like compulsively to keep giving rise to these more and more powerful systems, and in a way that's potentially deeply disempowering.
That's the race, right? Like, that's like,
yeah.
It comes back to the idea that an AI company, I maybe don't want to be potentially driving towards a cliff, but I don't have the agency to like steer. So, yeah.
But I mean, everything's fine apart from that.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Oh, it's such a terrifying prognosis.
There are, again, we wrote a 280-page document about like, okay, and here's what we can do about it.
I can't believe you didn't read the 200.
I started reading it, but I passed out. Does any of these, or do any of these safety steps that you guys want to implement, do they inhibit progress?
They're definitely, you create, anytime you have regulation, you're going to create friction to some extent. It's kind of inevitable. One of the key center pieces of the approach that we outline is you need the flexibility to move up and move down as you notice the risks appearing or not appearing. So one of the key things here is like you need to cover the worst case scenarios, because the worst case scenarios, they could potentially be catastrophic. So those got to be covered. But at the same time, you can't completely close off the possibility of the happy path. Like we can't lose sight of the fact that all this shit is going down or whatever. We could be completely wrong about the outcome.